Right, we've got an aerator on here, which is, there we go, straight away. That was out of the blue. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is the first ever Catch Knockout Cup trophy, and tomorrow on this lake behind me, you're going to get a chance to see right here on the Catch Fishing channel on YouTube that event filmed as a live match. We've got 16 of our channel members that are going head to head to try and knock each other out of that competition in order to get through to the final, which takes place the following day, which is again going to be right here on the YouTube Catch Fishing channel. I'm here today to fish this lake behind me, which is Laurels at Lindholme Lakes, where I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a taster of what kind of methods and tactics they're going to be using in that live match film. I'm going to be fishing bomb and pellet, and I've also got a method feeder set up as well. I'm fishing on peg 3, and I've got several different options about how I'm going to fish this peg. And whilst the sun is out, it was cold last night. It literally went down to about 2 or 3 degrees. The windscreens were wet through this morning, so we are starting to see those temperatures start to drop, and that's going to, I think, be reflected in the way that I'm going to fish today. Well, we've got a bit of a breeze blowing. It is a chilly wind, but I'm here on peg 3. So this is Laurels Lake, just so you know where we are if you know the fishery. Willows is over there. This is Laurels at the back over there. To the right is Beeches, and over to the left is Strip Lake. This is peg 3. Now, we are pleasure fishing, so we've got loads and loads of room. There are quite a few anglers on, and the bait tray is super simple today. I'll show you the rods and things about, show you how I'm going to fish. Bait tray wise, I've got some Fishery micro pellets here, as you can see, already soaked down. I've got some 6mm pellets. 8mm pellets have been great on this venue through the summer. However, because it went so cold last night, I'm just going to scale that down to 6mm pellets, just because I think it might get us a few more bites. And then I've got some 4mm fishery pellets as well, and I'm feeding these two on 2 different lines. I've got some micro wafters there for the method feeder, and that is it. I've got 2 rods set up, which I'll show you. One for fishing the bomb out there, where I'm going to be loose feeding 6mm pellets, but I'm going to kick off on the method feeder over to the right towards the point of that island. There is a bit of a sunken tree there under the water where I think it can be a little bit snaggy, but it definitely looks like a fish holding an area. And then the 4mm pellets I'm actually feeding just here at about 6 meters, where I'm going to be dropping a method feeder on there a little bit later on in the session. It's really nice in the sunshine today. That's just keeping the temperature up a little bit. Like I say, it was really cold last night. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the setups and everything. It is a free running rig reel here anyway. Setup wise, just got a 3000 HX Pro reel, as you can see, and an XRC 9-foot feeder. That's all you need for fishing venues like this. Gonna be, I think it'll be a slow start. I don't know, but that's what I'm expecting. So I'm just going to kick off with a micro. Kick off with a yellow Sonobaits micro wafter on a bayonet. I've got a size 14 carp method hook, and this is 0.16 soft steel hook length. I've got a 20 gram inter size open method feeder, and I'm going to start off just unclipped. I'm not going to clip up, just towards the point of that island. I'm not sure how close I'm going to be able to get. We've got to be realistic about it. I'd love to say that we can go really tight, albeit that might be in really shallow water. But we've got to be realistic and say that venues like this, where you have got brambles and you've got branches, you've got a tree there that's in the water, there are going to be obstacles down there. It's just, that's the nature of the beast. It's just what happens over time. So I might not really be able to go really tight, but I won't know till I get out there, will I? So like I say, I'm not clipped up. So I've got the drag undone. That's it. That drag's undone, so that when I'm looking around and stuff, talking to the camera, I'll just start there. I don't know if that's going to be clean there or not, but that is where I would imagine there are 1 or 2 fish enjoying that bit of cover there. I'm not using a stopwatch or anything like that today. This is just to give people an idea about how this lake is going to fish tomorrow, and to give the competitors an idea of what to expect. I don't know how good or bad this is going to be. Now, the event tomorrow, which is going to be on this channel tomorrow on YouTube, is any method. So yes, I've got 2 rods set up here, 1 for a bomb, 1 for a method. Tomorrow is any method, so there will be anglers fishing with poles, I guarantee. So this is at least going to give most people an idea of how it's going to fish, because I know for a fact that some of the competitors tomorrow won't be pole fishing. Some of them only compete you know, with rod only tactics. That's what they enjoy, and some of them aren't really fit enough to go waving 14.5 meters of pole around. So I'm going to have a few casts there. I'm sure I'll get line bites and things if there are fish there. But what I'm also going to do is loose feed. I've just got some 6mm pellets here. Throughout the summer months these would have been 8mm, but just because it's been so cold, I'm just going to keep firing a few out there, not too frequently. I'm not expecting, well, I haven't got a pellet waggler with me, so I'm not going to be casting a pellet waggler out there. So I've got some 6mm pellets out there, and then just a pinch of 4mm just there for later on. And I like to be quite positive with this short line, because I think if fish are going to come in onto that line, I think they like to, you know, they're there to feed, aren't they? That's my experience of fishing like that anyway. So I'm not getting any liners there at the moment, but like I said, this is my first cast, and we might find that the fish are in a different depth. You know, they might be in the slightly deeper water, because it was obviously so cold last night. We've got an aerator on here, which is, there we go, straight away, that was out of the blue, absolutely out of the blue. We've got the aerator on here, which, you know, as we all know, will be moving water around. Sometimes in winter that doesn't necessarily work in your favour, does it? But it's on, and there's nothing we can do about that. So that is obviously an option I've got today if I want to go there, because there isn't anybody to my left. So that was only in there, what, a couple of minutes maximum. I'm guessing it's one of those F1s, but there are some really big F1s in here. I actually had one last winter which weighed exactly 10 pounds. So they're monster F1s, aren't they? But there are lots and lots of carp in here as well, lots and lots of silverfish. I don't know if people are going to be tackling the silverfish tomorrow. There are lots of bream in here, and I have fish matches on here where I've literally caught 20-30 pound of bream down the margins on a method feeder by accident when I've been trying to catch other fish. So they could prove very, very important tomorrow. So there we go, that's a nice chunky F1. Fantastic bite, straight out the blue, wasn't it? It's a brilliant start, but like I say, how many times, you know, especially when it starts getting cooler, that you catch a fish straight away, and then it can go quiet for a long time. So that's a great start. Like I say, I'm not clipped up. I'm going to go back to that area, as you can imagine. Just popping back. I've not got my net in today. Don't usually have my keep net in on these session videos. So the format for tomorrow, to let you know about the match. The match is 16 anglers. So we've got 16 of our channel members who've entered the match. And the format for the match is basically a knockout basis. So the 16 anglers are going to be pegged so that there are 8 pairs of anglers. So dotted around the lake, there'll be 2 anglers together, then a gap, 2 anglers together, a gap, 2 anglers together, and basically all you've got to do in order to qualify for the following day's final is beat the angler at the next peg. So it's a knockout competition, and it's one where you're only fishing against the angler at the next peg. You're not worried about, are they catching at the other end of the lake? You know, is that a better end of the lake? Who cares? You're fishing against the angler at the next peg, whether that be on your left or right, depending on what peg you draw. And that's what they need to do in order to progress through to the final, which is the following day. So the following day's final will then obviously be knocked down to 8 anglers, and they will be split up into 4 pairs. Again, 4 pairs of 2 anglers, where there will be 3 section winners of £50, and the winner will walk away with not only the first ever Knockout Cup trophy, but they will walk away with £200 as well. So as you can imagine, it's been a competition that quite a few people have been interested in, and this is the first time we've ever ran it. It's the first time I've ever done it. That's a little bit to the left of where, same sort of range, but a tiny bit to the left of where the last one went. So this has been a bit of an experimental event tomorrow. It has sold out. We did cap it at 16 anyway, and if it's a success, if you enjoy watching it and following these anglers, who are a nice mix. They're a nice mix of club anglers. Some of them don't even fish matches. This might be their only match of the year. Some people have to borrow keep nets to fish these sorts of members matches. And so we're going to have a really nice mix. There are also a couple of anglers in there that fish open matches. So we've got a really nice mix. Some of them only fish with rod only. They will only fish with bomb and pellet and a method feeder. Whereas some will be quite happy waving a 15-metre pole around, fishing shallow and fishing for everything. So we're going to have a nice mix. I'm going to keep these pellets going in. That wind's limiting a little bit for how far I can bait. I'll keep them 4 millies going in. So that was a nice start. I'm sure we're going to catch on that bomb line, but I think the interesting thing will be is how long we've got to wait for bites. You know, we are obviously just coming out of summer. At the time of filming, it's the end of September, and the last 2 or 3 nights, certainly the last 2 nights, it's gone really, really cold, really cool. And so I think that might be reflected in how long we're waiting for bites. That first fish we just caught was only there 90 seconds, 2 minutes maximum. But on the bomb line, we might have to sit and be a little bit patient. That was drop back. And that could be a skimmer. Quite often with drop back bites on here on certain commercials, you might find that they are skimmers. It is a small fish, but there are lots of small stocky carp in here as well. So we'll see what this one is. Let's have a look. Let's net him just to... It's one of those little carp. That was a lovely drop back bite then. Hooks come out in the net. Now there are quite a few of these in here. I'm sure we're going to see some of these caught tomorrow, particularly if anglers are fishing with soft pellets, or they're going to go down the maggot or caster route. There are lots of fish this size, and whilst it's nice to be catching fish, personally I think it's the better stamp fish that are going to make the difference tomorrow, because like I say, the F1s, the average stamp of the F1s in this lake, from what I remember, is about 2.5 pounds, something like that, I would say, maybe £2, but they can go much bigger. But there are lots and lots of carp in here. It has changed over recent years. I've really fished here the last 3 winters. All I'm doing is 1 layer of micro pellets in there, laying in the hook bait, and that size 14 carp method hook, and that's it. Over the years, you know, it has changed this lake from what I remember. You know, over the last 3 winters, it was more about F1s. However, over those last 3 winters, we have seen it change into more of a carp lake, where there are more carp. Obviously the carp have got bigger. I don't think there's extra carp that have been put in here, but they have obviously got bigger, and so they're much more important. They can really make a difference. And when you've got little fish like that, I think that's going to be massive tomorrow, because there will be anglers who are going to be quite happy putting those fish in the net, but missing out on better carp that some people might find ways of catching by being a little bit more selective. But that'll be interesting to see. You know, I'm feeding 6mm pellets now. I dare say tomorrow there may be some anglers fishing 8mm pellets, which are a little bit more selective. Well, I'm getting little indications now. What can happen on this lake, and we may see it tomorrow, is that when you have more than 1 cast in one spot, quite often that's when small fish come in. You know, quite often you cast to a new spot, you catch a fish, a net fish, whether it be a carp or an F1. But if you were fishing, there we go, if you were fishing clipped up, nothing there, but that was a small fish rattle. What can happen is that when you have several casts to the same spot, you're obviously putting down a bed of these micro pellets, and quite often those little fish, i.e. skimmers or those little stocky carp or F1s, can take over. They zoom in on it, they home in on it, and then they just start attacking the micro pellets. And quite often when that happens, that's all you're going to catch, you know, because if you keep casting to that same spot, those little fish, I'm just going to go slightly to the left there, so it's slightly deeper, they can take over. And quite often it's pretty much like winter fishing. Sometimes you might not catch another net fish then, unless you cast to a different spot and start afresh. Now, I've been on this line for 20 minutes now, and like I said to you when I caught that first fish, it's quite common to catch an early fish like that and then it just to go a bit iffy. I'm getting little indications there, but they're not telling me that they're proper fish. You know, they could be little skimmers, they could be those little tiny F1s, stocky F1s, and I don't really want to catch those fish. If I was in a match now, I wouldn't be happy catching those fish. So this means that I've been building up that pellet line now. I've been loose feeding pellets on there for 20 minutes. So I'm going to make this my last cast. I'm going to come off this line. Obviously I can return to this at any stage, but I'm then going to switch over to the bomb rig, which I'll show you, the rig that I'm using. And I'm going to go out there with a 6mm hard banded fishery pellet on that, over those loose fed pellets. And I'm sure we'll get some indications, but it is in the open water. I haven't seen any fish rising today. I haven't seen any fish moving. The wind has got a little bit stronger, and we've also got the weather moving in as well. There's some clouds coming as well, so the conditions are going to change. This bright sunshine is going to stop shortly because we can see clouds coming, and that could really work in our favour. Slow indication there. I think that's another small fish. Yeah, so just like we said earlier, you know, once you have several casts to that one spot, it's amazing how these little fish can just take over and home in on those micro pellets, skimmer that time, nail that micro wafter. Again, I mean, this is a downside to micro wafters on some occasions, is because these smaller fish can obviously eat the micro wafters, but that's why we carry different sizes. If they were a big problem and I was going to stay on that line, then obviously I could switch up to a 6mm Bandon wafter or an 8mm even, if I wanted to be much more selective. So we've kind of seen what's happened on that line. We had a net fish straight away, and now the small fish have moved in. So I'm going to switch over now to the bomb and pellet line. I've been feeding it for, well, it's 25 minutes now. Now the rig is super simple. I've got the same rod, XRC, 3000 HX Pro reel, 8-pound horizon line, and I've got a 10-gram pellet bomb. Fantastic little bombs these, certainly ones that I use here right the way through winter. Certainly on these shallower lakes. It is free running, so it obviously complies with fishery rules. And then I've just got a 30cm hook length there. Again, 0.16 soft steel, and this is to a size 14 carp method hook. And all I'm going to put on is one of the fishery 6mm pellets, exactly the same with my banding tool, exactly the same as what I'm feeding. I'm not clipped up, as you can imagine, and I've got that drag undone because when I'm looking around at the camera, etc., I don't want to go losing my rod. So that's just right amongst the pellets. That's right in the pellet feed area, that. So I haven't gone this side of it or past it. That's right in the middle of it. Obviously I've got that option. I can go just past, because sometimes that's the way to go. I'm not going to time the casts or anything. It'll be interesting to see what happens on this line now, because obviously this is straight in front of me. It's in that open water. That's in the maximum depth that we've got on this lake, which I believe is around 5 feet. I don't think it's as deep as 6. It's around 5 feet deep. We haven't seen any fish moving anywhere, never mind just out in the open water. But if there are any fish down there, even if they're just grubbing around eating the loose-fed pellets, I'm sure we will get line bites. But I generally find that this line, you get less affected by those smaller fish. So even though I'm fishing 6mm pellets and not 8mm, it is still a little bit selective. That's just based on my opinion, on my experiences on this lake, where we've just been, you know, getting attentions from those really little fish with a method feeder and micro pellets over to the right. This method tends to be a lot more selective. Those little tiny fish don't tend to bother you as much. Certainly when you're fishing 6mm pellets. Obviously with 8mm pellets that'd be even more selective. One thing we're going to see in tomorrow's match is that you're going to see anglers that are constantly in touch with how good or bad they're actually doing, because they're only competing against the angler at the next peg. It doesn't matter if they're catching at the other end of the lake or somebody's catching a lot more on the opposite side. It doesn't matter, because you're only competing against the angler next to you. So you're fishing the same water as that angler, and so you're going to be constantly in touch with how good or bad you're actually faring through the event. Some areas, I dare say, you might only be after 20 or 30 pound. And if that's the case, you're going to know that. You're also going to be seeing how the angler next to you is fishing. You're going to see if they are catching. You're going to see exactly how they're catching. So you're going to be constantly in touch with what you need to do. Now, in the interests of trying to see what happens today before tomorrow's match, I've been fishing this line now for 30 minutes and I haven't had a single fish on it. I'm getting the odd little indication. Now if I leave it and keep feeding it for an hour, 2 hours, perhaps, I dare say, we might catch on it. But what I'm going to do is I'm suddenly going to switch now. I'm going to switch to 8mm pellets, just to see if it's going to make any difference whatsoever. Obviously 8mm pellets are bigger. They can be a little bit more visual. But more importantly, certainly through the summer months and at certain times of year, they're going to make more noise when they go in. So I'm going to switch to 8mm pellets now, just to see if it makes any difference whatsoever. So all I'm going to do, obviously on the same line, that's all I'm going to do. And when I reel in, I'm going to put an 8mm pellet on. So how many have I got there? There's 6 pellets there, so I'm going to put 6 8mm in. Obviously these will be able to be fired that little bit further. But I'm not too concerned about the range. It's just more about the noise of these pellets going in. So I'll put 2 lots of 6 in there, and I'm going to put an 8mm pellet on now and just see if we can catch on that. Like I say, through the summer months we generally find 8mm pellets can be best, especially for picking out those bigger F1s or the carp on this lake. But by trying it, it's just going to give us some sort of an idea of whether it would make any difference. So I've got an 8mm fishery pellet on there, as you can see, again on that size 14. Just fired 12 out there, so I'm just going to go over the top. So I don't want to go too far just yet. Obviously I could go further than that, but I wouldn't imagine you'd need to. Just make sure that drag's undone for when I'm looking round. That sun's moving round now, so I'll just move my tip round a little bit, just so that we can still see it okay. So I'm now only going to feed 8mm now, just to see if it makes a difference. It's been 15 minutes now since I switched to 8mm pellets, and I have started getting one or two little indications now. I have hooked one fish, which sadly came off halfway back, but I'm into one now. This has been out there about 4 minutes, so I can definitely say it's been a better response to the 8mm pellets, because even before I hooked a fish, I started getting indications that there were fish milling around the loose feed. So that's definitely something that we've seen already. You have got to be more patient, you know. It's you know, I've felt the water temperature, it has gone a little bit cooler, and it's what we're going to see at this time of year. This one's a carp. There we go. So I think that's definitely something that I would be doing if I was fishing the match tomorrow. I definitely would be fishing the 8mm, not the 6s. So that's been a positive change, and it's something that, like we said earlier, the stamp of the fish is going to be so important tomorrow. So even though I've only literally been fishing 3/4 of an hour, it's showing that certainly early on you're just going to have to be a little bit more patient, because we've had this sudden drop in temperature. I can't imagine it's going to change much before tomorrow's match. That's the first fish I've seen and heard jump. So I think all we're seeing is it's the time of day. As we're getting through the day, I think we'll start seeing one or two more fish moving around, but I certainly think early on you're just going to have to be patient. Obviously at this stage there might be anglers still priming pole lines at this stage, but certainly to catch one or two early fish, it looks like the 8mm pellet is definitely the best for getting one or two fish there, and that could obviously be the bait that's going to mean that you're going to pick out carp as opposed to F1s. So that sun's gone in now, and it looks like that's in for the rest of the day now. It's gone behind those clouds are coming, so that bright sunshine, it looks like it's finished for the day. So that'll be interesting to see how that's going to affect things. But I really think that with this approach, if you just slow it all down, you know, you leave it 5-10 minutes, by not feeding too much, I think you will pick off fish on this method. I think that one's on, don't you? Oh, more of an attack than a bite. Out of nowhere. Definitely fish down there, you know, milling about, they're just touching the line. So it's definitely the way to go at this stage. Just keep firing 6 or 8mm pellets in and just be nice and patient. This has been out there probably 6 or 7 minutes, something like that. It's an F1, that one. So fish like this at this early stage, you know, in tomorrow's match is going to be so important, because you're going to get spells where anglers are catching 2 or 3 fish, but then they might go an hour without catching. If you can keep picking off fish, rotating your lines, then that's going to be so important. Again, this has only been out there 6 or 7 minutes, something like that, and from nowhere, I'm getting the odd little indications, but the bites tend to just come out of the blue. Once we've netted this one, we're going to have a look on that short line to see if we can catch on a method feeder short. We know that method will probably come better much later on in the day. It'll be interesting to see if we can catch on it at this stage. There we go, that's another better stamp carp. These are going to be so important tomorrow. So it's time to have a look on the short line now. Now I could obviously drop a bomb and pellet over that line, which might be the way to go, but just to try it, I'm going to drop the method feeder over that line, just so that there's a little bit of a focal point within the centre of the 4mm pellets that I've been feeding there. But what we might find is, just like we discussed earlier, we might find that small fish are going to be an issue on this line. And if that's the case, then obviously that's something that for those lads that are going to be tackling this line tomorrow, whether it be like I'm doing or whether it be on the pole, it's certainly something that they need to bear in mind, and it may reflect in, you know, what type of bait they actually decide to use on this line. So because this is such short range, I'm going to undo that drag. I'm literally just going to plop that there, and I'm sure if there are small fish there, we're going to be getting indications. Remember that unlike when we started on the method feeder earlier, this line has been primed. We've been feeding it for about an hour. At the time of filming, it's only 12 o'clock lunchtime. So this is, I dare say, much earlier than most people would think about targeting this line. So this is going to give us a great idea about whether, if there are going to be any decent fish within this sort of a range so early on in the match. There we go. That's got to be a little, well, I was going to say that was a little skimmer. I don't think it's as small as what I thought. Or is it a bream? It's a bream, that's why. Wow, he's a bit lively, isn't he? Well, we said earlier on that these fish, you know, a lot of people would regard them as nuisance fish in tomorrow's match. But if you have a look at the size of those, you know, and I've been on here where you've caught one of these every cast for 15 casts. You know, when they arrive down the margin, they're as big as some of the F1s. You know, I'm bigger than some of the F1s. You know, so if you can get a run of those together, then it could give you that extra 20, 30 pound that's going to boost your weight. And the great thing with them is that quite often you're catching those fish whilst you're fishing the same method that you would be using to catch carp and F1s. So even if you are going to hook a carp fishing on this style of method, you're going to land the carp as well. And if they're coming all the time as well, that's going to help you boost your weight. You know, those fish could be very, very important, particularly for the people fishing with poles, because they can put good weights of those together depending on what baits they're going to be using. It's the end of September, and this has been a really interesting insight into how we just tend to start to slow things down this time of year. There are still plenty of fish feeding if we just change our approaches slightly. I'm really hoping you're going to enjoy tomorrow's live match. If you are watching this a few days after the event, I'll put a link to day one of the event at the end of this video for you, where we are going to be seeing one of our lucky channel members getting their hands on this, the first ever Knockout Cup trophy. So thanks for watching, and I really look forward to seeing you for day one of this brand new event.